This weekend saw one of the largest demonstrations in American history, and thankfully, despite the size and tightly packed crowds, it appears no one was actually hit with whatever it was Donald Trump dumped out of that cartoon plane. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm Brino, and this is the Morning Report on the federal courts for October 19th, 2025. Do me a favor, double tap your screen, comment whatever you did this weekend. Did you watch? Did you go? And watch through the intro, even if you're saving this to come back later, so we hit the FYP. All right, you ready? Let's catch up on the news. We are going to start with a Supreme Court order that was basically a side note last week with all the craziness going on, but could have really big implications, so I want to draw your attention to it. Thomas v. Humboldt County was a case out of California where code enforcement officers can fine people for various violations, and according to the plaintiffs, the only due process you get is a hearing where the judge and jury effectively are other code officers. Basically, you're going to lose if you appeal. So the plaintiffs presented this case to the U.S. Supreme Court as a violation of the 7th Amendment, which guarantees jury trial in civil cases at common law. The problem is the 7th Amendment does not apply to state governments, because when the Bill of Rights was written, just like the rest of the Constitution, it was only written to tell the federal government what they could and could not do. Now, there is a whole side lecture here about how the 14th Amendment slowly began to apply the Bill of Rights one piece at a time to the states. I just don't have time for that right now. The point is, starting mostly around the 1920s, the court started recognizing states should have to follow the First Amendment too. And how about the Fifth Amendment? And so on and so forth. But this was a really slow process and is still very much ongoing. The Second Amendment wasn't applied to the states until 2010. Well, the big case where the court decided whether to apply the Seventh Amendment was Minneapolis v. Bombolas in 1916. And the court still follows this case. But in 1916, we were just on the cusp of starting to apply the Bill of Rights to states. It was definitely not a done deal. So Bombolas said, no, the 7th Amendment does not apply, and to this day, it doesn't. Well, today is not going to be that big day for the 7th Amendment either. The court denied the petition in Thomas v. Humboldt County. But we did get a statement from Justice Gorsuch on the matter, and he said, look, 1916, when we decided Bombolas, applying the Bill of Rights to states was a bold new concept. Today, things have changed. We basically agree most of the Bill of Rights should apply to the states. It's probably time we came around on this one too. And Gorsuch discussed the importance of juries. He says, quote, civil juries today play a critical role in checking government overreach, holding public officials accountable, and ensuring a fair hearing for those who come before our courts. And you know what? Maybe this wasn't the case for it. But this note from Gorsuch let us lawyers know, hey, if you got a good 7th Amendment case at the state level, you should bring it. Now is the time. We need to overturn this. So that is a big deal, guys. It's also a really good example of how a statement or a dissent or anything else written by the Supreme Court that's not the majority opinion can still be important and worth paying attention to. All right, speaking of juries and their importance in checking government overreach, thank you, Justice Gorsuch, for that little transition. I want to swing through Washington, D.C., where the administration is still trying to use federal officers to enforce local law. And National Guard troops look like they might be here until next summer, according to some reports. So, how's it going? How's old Jeanine Pirro actually doing? Well, take a look at the case of U.S. v. Bigelow. Mr. Bigelow was arrested for an open container, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure was legalized in DC during COVID. I don't know if they changed the rules. If they did, they really did make a big deal out of it. Open container has been pretty common here ever since. But, yeah. Well, Mr. Bigelow also allegedly resisted his arrest, and so Pirro attempted to charge him with a felony. But the grand jury refused to indict, so she dropped it down to a misdemeanor. Well, on Friday, the case was dropped entirely by the U.S. attorney with prejudice, meaning they cannot refile it. Some of the documents are sealed, so I can't really tell what happened. I've heard some sources say they saw the body camera footage and decided they didn't want the heat. I don't know. Whatever. They dropped it. But this is not an isolated incident. After count them, 3 failed attempts to get the grand jury to indict Sidney Lori Reid on felony charges of assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers, the Pirro attorney's office had to once again drop the charges down to a misdemeanor. But this time, they tried taking them to trial. And they went all the way, guys. This is a full, in-depth trial for a misdemeanor charge of assaulting a police officer while she was being arrested. And they really wanted to send a message on this one, guys, because unlike Mr. Bigelow, Ms. Reid was arrested while filming ICE agents who were detaining a man as he was being released from jail. Allegedly, during the altercation with federal agents, she kicked one of them. The jury, it seems, clearly disagreed. So as Janine continues to impose the will of a president who believes his executive power allows him to push the boundaries of Article 2, the signatories of the U.S. Constitution, that's you and me, and the carve-out that we left for ourselves to check the power of the executive and legislature, as Justice Gorsuch said, the jury, remains a rampart for the time being. You know what rampart is? A big-ass wall. Please, folks, understand your importance as a juror and your responsibilities, and try to understand what your powers as a juror are before you walk into that courtroom. This is all very important. All right, last, we are going to check in on the shutdown. This is American Federation of Government Employees and AFL-CIO v. OMB. And this is a case about whether or not the president is allowed to use the government shutdown to fire a bunch of people. So if you're furloughed right now, this is one you should probably keep your eye on. Basically, last week the court issued a TRO to stop the president from firing people. So the administration tried to find loopholes in the TRO and find ways around it. And today was supposed to be the day they pulled the trigger on a big firing of people they believed weren't protected by that TRO. So Friday, the court held an emergency hearing and made some adjustments to the TRO to ensure that the administration was blocked and those loopholes were closed. Now, to be clear, these are preliminary equitable rulings. The judge could decide later that the administration is allowed to terminate these jobs, but they are not allowed to rush it through and try to get away with something. That's not how this works. So, new TRO was issued on Friday, and today the government is required to turn in a new list of all reductions in force that are actual or imminent that it believes are currently enjoined by this TRO. The court wants to know if it's missed anything or if the government thinks it's found any other loopholes. So I will keep an eye on that for you and keep you up to date. Last note, there will be a hearing soon, 10:30 Chicago time, in the Chicago Headline Club case. This one should be a scorcher. I will try to go live with that if I can, at least if I get this published in time. That is 25-CV-12173 if you want to check the docket. All right, that is your Monday morning report on this weekend in federal courts. Please consider supporting me through the link in my profile so I can keep this sustainable and keep going. I very much appreciate it. Otherwise, keep watching. I will keep going. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great Monday.